Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Spearfactor Spearfishing Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Whitman. This episode of the show features Mr. Hugo Rodas of Ghost Spearfishing. He has a pretty unique story. When I met Hugo, he was just getting into diving, and then the next thing I know, he's got his own brand, Ghost Spearfishing, and he's just going for it. He's all in. So I thought his story is very unique and really cool, and I thought it would be great to share it with you. Also, I just want to apologize. I would have got this episode out a week ago, but I lost my voice, so if it feels a little awkward, sounds a little awkward, then that's why. But anyways, hope you guys enjoy the show. And don't forget, if you want to step up your spearfishing this summer, go ahead and check out spearfishingmentor.com. There's spearfishing classes. One of them's for free. Give you a little bit of an idea of what to expect. If you were to purchase the master class, there's over 5 hours of information on there for you guys. So be sure to check out spearfishingmentor.com. Now I'd like to thank our sponsor, Mr. Ted Hardy of Immersion Freediving. Enter promo code Spearfactor for 15% off on his 28-day freediving transformation course. And it's pretty awesome. I've used it and I recommend it. So you can find this course and the other courses Ted puts out for us at freedivingsafety.com. Like I said, enter the promo code Spearfactor for the discount. And thanks, Ted, for sponsoring the show. Our next sponsor is Rod Spearguns. Paul has offered us 10% discount with a promo code Spearfactor. So thanks, Paul, for making badass guns and providing a hookup for our listeners. And Chimera Side Slip. So Chimera Side Slip, you can purchase those at Chimera Spearfishing. That's Kimera. And basically, I've talked about the side slip before on the show. It's kind of the benefits of a slip tip without worrying about breaking your tip hunting around rocks. It replaces the flopper with a side slip. Check it out more at the website. And if you use promo code Spearfactor, all lowercase, at checkout, they'll give you 5% off. And our last sponsor is One Drop Spearfishing. Basically, an environmentally minded group of guys that love to dive, live and breathe it, but their whole focus is feeding friends and family and enjoying their time in the water. Nothing more, nothing less. Solid group of guys. And check out their website, One Drop Spearfishing. Check them out on YouTube, One Drop Spearfishing. And if you'd like to sponsor Spearfactor Podcast, feel free. You can go ahead and shoot me a note on the website, spearfactor.com. Thank you. Welcome back to Spearfactor Spearfishing Podcast. I have a very special guest. His name is Hugo Rodas from Ghost Spearfishing, and I actually met this gentleman. I don't know, it was a couple years ago. I think we went out spearfishing on the boat, and he was just getting into spearfishing. And then the next thing I know, I see him like go full bore into it, like branding himself and going for it. And I was like, oh, this is good shit. I love it. So, anyways, Hugo, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brett. Thank you for having me. Really a pleasure being here. It's almost like a dream come true. So I mean it, man. I mean it. This is serious business.
When you say serious business,
what do you mean? What do I mean? What I mean is that now I have, at least for this moment, I have a platform to continue pushing this message of safety, and not just safety, but security around spearfishing. So that is the main reason why I'm excited to be here.
Well, that's awesome. I did see on your Instagram page, you had a link to Ted Hardy's freedive safety website on there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
yes, sir.
So let me just start with this. We were talking before I started recording, and you had shared a little bit about your profession and how that, so let's talk about how what your profession is and how that kind of plays a role in your thoughts and attitude towards spearfishing.
Okay, so I am what you call a bilingual medical speech language pathologist, or simply speech pathologist or speech therapist. In the medical field, we're just known as ST. But we're looking at many different things. We assess and we treat disorders of swallowing, cognition, language, and if you look at those as they branch out, in language, you're looking at receptive language, which is comprehension, expressive language. If you're looking at cognition, we look at memory, attention, executive function, anything related to cognition. And then when it comes to swallowing disorders, we look at oral dysphagia, which is a swallowing disorder, and we look at pharyngeal dysphagia. Now, because of the setting where I'm at, I am at a skilled nursing facility or a nursing home. We treat primarily patients with swallowing disorders. And once in a while, we get patients with cognition problems or language problems. But the bulk of my work is about treating swallowing disorders. And so what does that mean? Is that you have patients who might take a sip of water, and next thing you know, they're in the ER. And I mean, it sounds dramatic, but depending on pre-existing conditions, their age, how big they are or how skinny they are, they one sip of water can really send a person to a hospital if it goes down the wrong pipe. So that to me is it's a very serious thing, because my entire credibility is at stake here, because I'm the only speech therapist in my facility. So it's something that it's highly rewarding. Makes good money, but it's highly rewarding, because some days you feel like a superhero walking out of there. You feel like you actually feel like you saved someone's life. And so getting into spearfishing and then noticing the parallels, safety and security it's always at the forefront, and not just because I'm a little overworked. So
Taking that, your profession, and what you were saying as far as now we're jumping into spearfishing, and you had mentioned that your passion with spearfishing is one of the things pushing safety. What are some things that you are doing to kind of like cross branch the stuff from your profession, and how you kind of use it to mold and help you or push a safety message or something, like the connection between that and spearfishing?
Well, what I was just saying earlier, because I am a little overworked, I don't really talk about work when I'm out diving. So it all happens very organic. I want to say it all happens very natural. Where I work, everything that I do, a big bulk of my of grad school focused on studying people's behavior. Not like a psychologist per se, but more of their responses. The way that they communicate, the things that they say, the things that they don't say. So for me to, like I was telling you earlier before we started recording, a big component also is to provide patients and families education. So let's say, to give you a practical example, let's say I get this guy we just met online, and oh, hey, what's up, bud? Da, da, da. We get ready, and he's like, oh yeah, let's go dive over there. And then you notice that the waves are like 3 to 4 feet, and this guy's just so pumped to get in the water, and he's not even acknowledging the fact that we might get our asses kicked on the rocks. So to me, it's gotten to the point where like, whoa, pump the brakes. Like, like, all right, hey, before we get in the water, what do you notice? Just asking questions, just kind of, just to gain a sense of what is their thought process. Maybe they know something that I don't know. Maybe they know the spot better than I do, and maybe if they walk a little bit further, that they get into this cove where it's actually calm, and we don't have to worry about these waves. So I just started asking questions, really, But if it's not really landing, if it's not really getting us anywhere, I just stop it and say, all right, look, these are the guidelines. This is what we're gonna do. Boom, 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 and just hit all these different bullet points. And some guys will be cool with that. Other guys kind of look at me like I'm crazy. But for the most part, people are very receptive to it. I think that it kind of empowers them to know that it's serious business. Like I said earlier, that we're there to keep each other safe, and that it's actually going to increase our breath hold when we feel secure around our dive buddy. So increase our chances of landing more fish.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that as far as being calm and comfortable with your partner does, without a doubt, like for me, increases my breath hold and my ability to relax. So would you say like your ability to go, okay, um, this person's unsure or doesn't really know, and your ability to kind of take charge and say, okay, well, check this out. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go hit this, do this, do this, do this, and this is how we're going to do it. Do you feel that that ability is the same thing that you also crosses over from your work, being that you're the only one at your work with your skill set?
Oh yeah, definitely. Sometimes you have some families that they mean well, but they just nod their head, and you're telling them, hey, look, this patient only has two teeth. Your mom, we can't find her dentures. Um, the family member will say, sorry, we can't find their dentures. We look for them everywhere, but here they come and they bring their mother, who is 96 years old, who has dementia, who can't even stand up, who can barely even hold a cup of water, for example, and she only has two teeth, for example, and they're bringing her like chicken, and it's just it's you don't want to get on a high horse and be like, well, I know better because I'm the one with the master's degree. No, it doesn't work that way. You're building a relationship with families, but the big thing is getting them to trust you, because sometimes they're like, no, 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 well, she's 96 years old, she should be able to eat whatever she wants, and that's completely validated. Like that, I completely agree with that. But when it's just a matter of safety, then I really have to get a little strict. It all translates to spearfishing. For example, even with the most simplest of things, like I'm loading my gun and this guy's like literally swimming right in front of me. The first time you turn away, you load your gun. The second time you turn around again. By the third time, the guy out of the way, like, bro, like we already talked about this. You need to get out of the way, or I might kill you. You know. So.
Yeah, I think that's a skill set in itself as far as, I mean, you mentioned a good point. I mean, the trust, right? Trust is everything in and
Mm-hmm.
out of the water. And so, and we talk about this quite a bit at work and stuff like that, but in order for people to be able to trust you with their life, um, there has to be a mutual level of respect. And I think like anything, right? You have to gain that respect. It's not just given. So, and
Right.
so
Yeah.
there's a certain bedside manner, and then there's a certain the way you carry yourself and speak to others, like exactly what you said, and rehearsing that every day over, because I mean, really, you could have all the knowledge in the world, and I feel like if you're an asshole, nobody's really going to listen to you, or I mean, they're just
Right.
not going
Yeah.
to, especially when you're dealing with families like you're talking about too, because that is their number one priority. And I could see how someone would be like, she's 96 years old, let her enjoy, what she's got left. And then in your situation, it's like, yeah, but I'm trying to extend that as far as I can. So I totally understand what you're saying. There's a lot of empathy, sympathy, and tactful speaking that needs to get involved, like when you're doing stuff like that. And I feel like when you have a dive team, like, or like you're a dive pair, and you're just especially when you're just starting to get to know each other, and we'll get into mentoring in a second, but like when you first meet a guy and you don't know anything about him, and you kind of have to feel each other out and wait for there's that area where it's like either they are like they say something I'm not sure. Okay. Well, here's my opportunity to input what I do know, or you could realize, man, this guy really knows what's going on and just shut the fuck up, you know, and take it all in and ask good questions. I mean, that's just it because we don't know everything for sure. But so you're okay, so your brand is Ghost Spearfishing. Now, even you know what, before we even get to Ghost Spearfishing, let's go even farther back. How where do you live? You live in
Mhm.
LA now, correct? LA area.
I'm in Hollywood. Yeah.
Okay. What was it that
Yeah, like in the heart of Hollywood.
okay, what was it that like sparked your interest into spearfishing? Like what was it that kind of got you going?
Well, I have a solid background in BMX. I was a sponsored BMX rider. And through BMX, the same thing. We had our own little crew, and the people come and go. You meet, you riding with the guy or you go diving with the guy in January, and then you won't see, and you got along very well. Um, you don't see till like November, and you see them, and you're like, dude, where you been? And no, and you start catching up, and what I would get, I started to notice it became a pattern. You're a dude, you're like a ghost. You're a stranger. You're a ghost, but always busy. So at first I would take offense to it, like ghost. Like, nah, man. Like, this guy should know that if at any moment they need someone to talk to, they can always talk to me. Like, I'm not ghosting anyone. But it's just more of a colloquialism. So it was that was the situation. I went out riding one time with a buddy of mine, BMX, and he introduced me to this guy who had been doing it, who had been spearfishing with his dad since he was 12. And this guy just happened to be like the nicest guy in the world. And his name is Lupe. He taught me everything I needed to know. But this guy was like, just get in there, just jump in and start shooting fish. But I was so like methodical. I was like, okay, this Saturday I'm only gonna wear a mask. The following Saturday or Sunday when we go out, I'm going to wear the suit for the first time. And again, because my mind is just thinking in like steps. Like if I put on the entire gear, I'm just gonna really overwhelm myself, and I might hurt myself with the spear gun. Like I was already jumping into all these conclusions, but it actually really helped me out, like breaking it down as I would if I was doing therapy with patients. It's the same thing. You break everything down into sequential steps. You don't just jump ahead, especially when safety is concerned. What I'm gonna get to is that he was so patient that he made my transition into spearfishing very easy. And fortunately, time I don't really get to dive with him anymore. But even after we stopped diving, um, I just ran with it. I started hitting people up on Facebook. Just joining all these Facebook groups. I just ran with it. I just became super obsessed. Like not so much into the I wouldn't say like getting to know like like the top names, like the top dogs in spearfishing, but more I got really into just being out in the water and finding people to get in the water with. So like if you ask me about people in the industry or I don't know any pros. I just know that I just want to be out in the water catching fish or even just free dive.
So that right there though is the best. I mean, that's all that matters because you say the pros. I don't necessarily know who's a pro and who's not anymore. There's no professional competition. And if pro is someone that makes money spearfishing, like there's even not that many of us um, in
Mm-hmm.
general. But the whole point is to just get in the water and have fun. That's because I think most of us do it because we want to get away from our regular 9 to 5 job, or just kind of decompress or whatever it is. And the other thing that you mentioned I thought was really interesting was you're talking about how methodical you are. If like I go with the mask, all right, cool. Then I go with the wetsuit and the mask. And what I find very interesting, as you were saying that, I thought, you know what? I feel like the people that grew up here did that exact same
Mm-hmm.
thing being a kid, where I remember like being at little Corona Del Mar, going, oh, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
bodyboard in waves and play in waves and get trashed in waves and be comfortable with the ocean. Now I'm going to go snorkeling where I just have like a shitty pair of fins and a mask and swim around and see little fish. And then it's like, oh, I'm getting serious. I got a wetsuit now, and now I'm surfing in the winter, and I'm go from bodyboarding to surfing, and I have a wetsuit. Now I'm going to take that same wetsuit that I used to surf with, and I'm going to put my mask and fins back on and go in the water in the winter. Now, like, and it just progressed all the way through life to where next thing you know, you've now put a spear gun in your hand, and now you have uh top, top notch or more expensive equipment, carbon fins and all this stuff, but it's like a natural progression that you had to do as an adult, which is kind of interesting. And some of us did it by
Mhm.
default just by virtue of growing up and learning all that stuff as we went. But to speak to that, I know people that have spearfished and their very first time in the ocean was going spearfishing with everything. And I was like, that
Uh-huh.
seems insane to me because of what you just said.
Yeah.
There's so much going on, especially on a shore dive, but just in general, like that there is so much thrown at someone. And I even remember this with my wife. It's like, oh yeah, the weight belt. Okay, and the mask. Oh, and clear your ears. At the same time you're clearing your ears, I want you to do this, and I do that and do this. And she's like, yeah, I'm done. That's too much. Um, you
Yeah.
know? And it's like it's almost like with
Yeah.
scuba, it allows people to don't worry about the diving thing because you can breathe. But everything else, as far as clearing and dealing with the mask, that's like so people progress from scuba to now free diving because they don't want to wear all that stuff. So that's how you came
Yeah.
up with ghost
And but
spearfishing because you're a ghost.
no, it goes deeper than that. It goes deeper than that. It's just much more deeper than that. But just for the purpose of this of this interview, I don't want to get too deep into it. But I can tell you I can tell you that I wasn't brought to the U.S. as a little kid, by choice. They told us, my family told us that this was a family, that we were going on a family vacation. Then all of a sudden, we came to LA on a family vacation, quote unquote, like I said, and our visa suddenly expired, right? And then next thing you know, by age 10, I'm working my first job, and we I'm helping my dad pay bills, when it's supposed to be the other way around.
Right.
And for like 15 years, like we went from literally, I shit you not, living the American dream in Mexico. Like I had a very privileged childhood.
Uh-huh.
Like my parents owned two properties, three cars, including a refurbished 54 Bel Air hatchback. My two sisters and I attended Spanish bilingual private school and after school practiced gymnastics and martial arts. Like we were pretty well off. And then in 1994, we had the 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 economy go to shit, and so did my dad's job. My dad's he used to install satellite dishes, so he worked with very affluent people, and we just were able to afford this amazing lifestyle. But then we literally lost everything from from age 9 to 10. Everything just went south, and I was literally waking up in a shitty studio apartment. The five of us waking up in a shitty studio apartment located between Koreatown and Hollywood, and waking up with cockroaches crawling across her face. So I didn't want to be stuck in that situation. So I made the conscious effort to just devote. And both of my parents are college educated, so um, education has always been huge in our family. And so I made that conscious effort. My main thing was to get straight A's and put myself through school. I spoke it, I believed it, and I achieved it. I graduated from NYU, and then I graduated from Chapman. And but in the process, I was this ghost. I had my core group of friends, but because they were also workaholics, we barely hung out like once or twice per year. And when you're working so many hours, I mean, your social skills just literally go down the drain because you only know how to operate within being clocked in, right? Within the clock. So um, I caught myself like feeling very inadequate at times, not being able how to interact socially, and that just at some like during my teenage years, um, it just took me on this downward spiral where like I started to believe that I was this antisocial person, but it took me some time to realize, and also getting my education in healthcare and the behavioral sciences to learn that no, it's just it was just based on the circumstances that I went through. So that's where most comes from. So when I tell you that I don't know any pros or anything like that, like I don't know much about the industry. I just want to be out in the water. That is the person that I am trying to attract when I ask for buddies to join me in diving, because I do get many guys who will tell me, I don't feel ready to join the OC Spiros, which I respect these guys to the fullest, first and foremost. Or I don't feel comfortable joining the LA Fathomers. That shit's like super overwhelming. I went to the meeting and like there's all these guys, and I'm just like, fuck, bro, like it's just super intimidating. Like I asked this guy, he said he couldn't go diving with me, and I'm like, now I don't know if I want to go back. And so a lot of the times, once you get to know these guys, you find out that they're going through shit that I went through, where some certain social situations make you feel very anxious, and so you kind of just withdraw and you want to do your own thing. And so I work better in small groups. I work better like on a one-on-one with people because I spent the bulk of my teenage years and my young adulthood just kind of being a workaholic. Thankfully all of that shit is over.
Hey, that's a hell of a story, though. Yeah, so where in Mexico did you live?
I'm from Monterrey, Nuevo León, which is a state right south of Texas. This is the second largest city in Mexico. And because it's so close to Texas, there's a huge Tex-Mex influence in this part of Mexico that is unique when you compare it to the rest of Mexico.
So with that being said, when you had mentioned before to me that it was weird when you came here, being that and I know if anybody knows a little bit about Mexican culture, is a class system as far as like the Spanish lineage and the indigenous lineage, and the two, like, social status is a big thing, just like here. But when you
Yeah,
came,
of course.
when you came to America, when you came to the US, remember, like, why was it Hollywood? Why did your dad decide did your dad decide to, like, yeah, let's go to Hollywood? And then when you came here, I imagine, because we've met, like, you're a fairly white dude. And
damn, I never heard that before.
well, I mean, like, for example, when we go to Baja, or just you're talking about um agricultural workers, dark, native, like dark Hispanic descent, Indian descent, compared
Right.
to someone of Spanish from Spain background. And I don't know your personal details, none of my business, but I was just saying, did you notice a difference when you came to America, and here you are having this background of been well off, and you're trying to integrate with people that have a much different background, I'm assuming?
Yes, definitely. And so that's why it's twofold for me. That's why this whole concept of ghost, because I didn't fit in with the Latino community, because both of my parents are college educated. They're Spanish. It's a little more articulate. They have a wider vocabulary. So for me to go out and meet coworkers, for example, working low skilled jobs, it was always like, oh, who is this? Like, who is this? Who is this guy? Like, where does he come from? Like, why does the Spanish sound like this and not like that? Why is it more standard? But it was always like trying to knock me down. It was never like I could fit in. I could never find a home. When you start talking about ghosts, like they're just looking for a place to rest. But I never really had that niche until I started organizing BMX events, until I started building my own community. And so it was like feeling like an outcast. So for me in spearfishing, that is the person that I'm kind of the demographic that I'm tapping into. Those are looking for a dive buddy then don't know where to start in spearfishing, who want to go with a guy that they can say, okay, this guy's it's a little strict, but at least he's consistent, and he's not a pro or anything, but I can learn a thing or two from this guy. And so hanging out with me, going diving with me is will give them an opportunity to make to basically just use me so that they can get better and find their own niche, their niche, because I've been through that. And so if I meet I've been meeting so many people in the short span of 4 years, so many dive buddies. Again, like some will stay diving with me, others they just move on and do their own thing. They continue diving, they find their own little crew. But those that stick around, or those that I decide to stick around, they're quality people, they're quality individuals. And I feel like now with through spearfishing, I found this home of meeting individuals that are, not to sound cocky, but people that are at my level. People that are at my level. I get to choose if I want to keep you in my life, or just say, all right, peace out. You gain a little bit from our dives. Now you can move on and do your own thing. But I now have that opportunity to be hanging out with people who are not focusing on like who I was, this poor kid, this poor Mexican kid, or they're not really focusing on like social status. They're focusing on catching fucking fish. They're focusing on having a great time in the ocean. They're trying to disconnect from reality to get into a different reality. You know what I mean? So to me, that's super therapeutic. That's super
Hallelujah.
therapeutic.
Amen. Fucking A. I love it. That's exactly it right there, brother. Yeah, that's exactly what you just said as far as, focusing on the right things. And I think what you're talking about when you're saying at your level, it's not necessarily your level as a level. It's just the things that you have in common, the same value, what your kind of value. You just click. Some people click. Like you could have a room full of 10 guys or girls or both, whatever. And there'll be that one dude in that room that's like, this is my fucking brother. And you hardly knew the guy before you went in there. And it just works out that way. And I realized this too, because I've dove with a lot of different people. And it's not that you don't want to dive with you again. It's not that at all. It's like you're more than welcome to. But you got that one guy or girl, and it's just like, yes, dude, like we get it. And if you can't dive, that's cool. I'll dive with the other guys, and that's all good too. But there's something really special about finding like-minded individuals. It's the same stuff that makes up um, with very successful teams in any shape, form. Like everybody is on the same page with the same goal, and they know they're part of that piece of the puzzle, but it's not really about them, but it's about, overall doing what we got to do to get fish in the boat, or, coming home safe, or winning the game, or whatever it is. But yeah, absolutely. I love it. I mean, and now that was that everything that you explained to me about ghost spearfishing? You said you didn't want to get into it, but we've been talking for quite a bit about it.
Yeah, I just didn't want to get too deep, but I think that to push for this vision, they have to lay out a foundation. People need to know where you're coming from. And so I kind of contradicted myself there, but that's okay. That's okay.
Well, no,
and see,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say one day I'm gonna publish a book called "You Plateaued with Your Breath Hold." It's not you, it's your dive buddy.
He's not pushing you hard enough. You know
no,
what?
No, it's not even
What?
that. It's not
What?
even that, Brad. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What is it? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, because going through this transitional phase of building my little crew with spearfishing, going through this process, I was so eager to find like a best friend, that one homie who is like, I can trust this guy. I have all these dive buddies, but this is the one guy that if I know I want to dive down to 80 feet, this is the guy that I'm gonna call, or who I'm gonna wait for to get this shit done. And together we're gonna grow, we're gonna get better, and we're gonna push ourselves. But then you come to realize that there are lives, because you're spending so much time focusing on getting better in the water, that you start to just brush, like push aside these personality, this lifestyle differences that are really keeping you, that are self-limiting. These are self-limiting behaviors that are keeping you from getting better, because you now have put so much emphasis on this one person that, for example, you go out on a trip to Baja, you spend a couple nights over there, and the entire night before you get in the water, you're fucking drinking. Now, if you were with a different person, would you be drinking as much? No, but this is your main dive buddy. You guys are having a great time in Baja. You're drinking. Then the next morning you go diving and you can only hold your breath for 30 seconds. And yes, you had an amazing time out the water. I mean, you vibe with this guy, and it's not just you and him, but it's your other buddies too. But you're having a great time with him. But you're now starting to notice that this is becoming a pattern. Like, dude, we're always fucking drinking before we get in the water, and now we're over here, we're barely able to catch breath. And then when you all of a sudden just shift focus and you start diving with individuals that don't even drink, it might sound boring, but next thing you know, you're holding your breath for 2 minutes. And that was exactly the case for me. Again, because I was placing so much emphasis on like putting this guy on a pedestal, because I felt like we had so many things in common. He wanted to be not just a dive buddy, but be like a close friend, or at least I thought. And that wasn't the case. And that was keeping me from getting better. And literally from night to day, I went from holding my breath at 30 feet for a minute and 24 to 2 minutes. And it's like, holy shit, it wasn't even me. I've been doing everything that Ted Hardy told me. I've been doing my diaphragmatic stretches, my lung stretches, you name it. I'm doing CO2 tables, and nothing is fucking working. And then you change your buddy, you change your mindset, and boom, now you're holding your breath for 2 minutes underwater at 30 feet. I mean, it might not be like the greatest thing for those that are more experienced listening to this episode right now, but to me, it's like, fuck, it wasn't even me. It was my fucking dive buddy.
So I can see what you're saying. So there's some similarities to like this and working out, where you do the same workout every day. And initially, right, 6 months goes by or 3 months, whatever it is. And your body adapts and you get stronger. And then you hit the wall, the plateau, because you haven't changed anything in 3 months. You haven't changed anything in 6 months, whatever it is. So you completely alter what you're doing and shock your body again. And then you break through that plateau. And so what you're saying is that having a dive buddy, if you're not progressing, and even though, you guys are on the same page socially or whatever it is, you're sometimes, some situations, or periodically, it may be, who knows, diving with the same guy over and over and over and over again, you're getting bad habits. You don't even realize it. B,
Yes.
you're not progressing and you don't realize it. You're just like, hey, we're just going to sit around and wait until we get better. This just takes time. And it's kind of like, in some ways, the blind leading the blind in some regards. And that's a really good point, actually, that to think about. And I think we all have like a variety of guys we dive with, and I will say, ability level versus experience. Sometimes nowadays, some guys are really good at diving, some guys are really good at hunting, some guys are really good at different aspects of the sport, maybe just even boating, right? And
Mm-hmm.
having a diverse group of guys, learn a lot. You can learn a lot from your diverse group of partners. So on the last trip, I think it was a couple weeks ago, we went out and it was like, hey, I'm getting mentored in business from a friend who's, you know, 15 years, 10 years younger than me, 15 or 10 years younger than me. But yet I'm also talking to another dive partner of mine who's 10 years older than me, and I'm mentoring him on another aspect. And then in virtue, he's mentoring me on life, on so many other aspects of parenthood or whatever it is, fatherhood, whatever it is. But having a diverse group of partners is good, but I think also the other part you're talking about is breaking out of your own mold, your own shell, stepping outside of your comfort zone and going to dive with new people and not having an ego, I think is a big thing too, to be like, okay, look, I am stuck here for a reason. I don't know the answer to this question. I don't know. Can someone please friggin' help me? Let me try to go find someone that will help me, you know? And then you can always come
Yeah.
back and show your old dive buddy, like, hey, check this out. And then they're gonna be like, how the fuck did you do that? Because I did this. And you guys can be a catalyst for each other, piggyback in
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
way, Yeah.
That's no, that's 100%. That's exactly what I've been doing actually. Um, so I feel like I unlocked that door. Like I was able to hold my breath for 2 minutes, and now I'm imparting, you know, what I learned. And I learned how to do that, hold my breath for 2 minutes by diving with a complete stranger, this lawyer from Hollywood. We just went out one morning and just watching him do his thing, I was like, wait a minute, I can do that. I'm just gonna replicate exactly what he's doing. Um, and sure enough, and then so I called my buddy Armando and I told him, hey bro, look, check this out. I did this, I did that. I went out with this guy and it's working so well. You try it, so but I think that if I would have had that fallout with this buddy that I described earlier, I think I would have been stuck in the same rut. Again, it's not like we had a drinking problem or anything, but even just even 2 3 beers, did make a difference the next day that we went diving. You know what I mean? And not just that, other behaviors, that not to get into them, but they might have other lifestyle choices, things that they engage in that you can, don't really focus on because you're more about your dive together. But you start to read buddy's problems, who is now your friend. At the end of the day, it really starts to mess with your breath when you're genuinely concerned for the security of a friend, someone who you consider a close friend. And this is because, let's say they have an unstable job, and it's not necessarily because they're just going through a rough patch. No, it's because that's what they are as a person. They just can't have a stable job. And you start out with that vibe at the beginning of the dive, like, oh yeah, just going to it with my girl, and then you start to notice that it's a pattern. You're taking that with you into the ocean when it's supposed to be this like this like this yoga moment. It's like this meditation state that you're getting into so that you can hold your breath for a longer period. And now you're like worrying about your friend, and then you start to realize like, well, is this a one-way friendship here? Like, is this guy reciprocating the same friendship? So I know it's getting really deep, but these are things that I think happen at a social level that I haven't heard in any other podcast or any other episode. And I listen to a lot of spearfishing podcasts, but in the ones that I just haven't. And maybe it's been talked about before, but I think that I think it's something that we have that conversation with ourselves. Like, who do we keep in our circle, and how are they helping us if when we are very competitive and we don't have a bigger window. I started diving at 32, 33. We don't have a big window. You know what I mean? And you really want to get good. You're gonna really look at the people you keep around you.
Yeah, I think that's true, not just for spearfishing for life though. I mean, we talk about it like where at some point period like during certain times of your life, it's like, you're as good as the company that you keep. And
Exactly.
and it's not that you're saying you're dumping your friends. It's like, hey, is this guy gonna get me or girl gonna get me in the direction that I want to go? No, okay. Well, are they, holding me back? Are they not a positive influence on me? I don't need that negativity in my life. So a lot of times, like, I don't know, it's so interesting to me because I have never met, and I'm not saying I personally have not had this situation. I have seen this quite a bit the older I get, where it's like, dude, that's a one-way relationship. I don't need that shit.
Uh-huh.
And, you don't need that shit because there is some good people out there. Everybody, I guess, growing up had that friend that was like an asshole, but he was like their asshole. And
Right.
and it's cool to be friends with those people, but you kind of keep them certain arm's distance reach. And I know, like, I don't really want to go spearfishing if I have to cater to this or be cautious of this or know that this dude is kind of selfish, and I know it's not going to be all about us doing this together. It's going to be like, oh, as long we got to make sure he has a good time, otherwise he's going to have a shitty attitude, and it's terrible. Especially, dude, nothing when you go, nothing brings that out than a spearfishing trip. When you
Right.
travel in a car with somebody.
Exactly. Uh, I'm
And
throwing my
it's
hands up in the air right now. Like, amen. Yeah, for sure,
yeah,
man.
and it's funny because you can have guys totally different backgrounds, totally different jobs, and you put them in a team, and we all get along, and we all know we all just, okay, we're doing this and that, and everything works out great. My dog's barking in the background. Uh, but it takes one guy, and it's like, fuck, we got to go do this, we got to do that. Where is so and so? Oh, he got drunk, and like, God damn it. Like, now I got, excuse me. Sorry, guys, but my wife will be mad at me for saying that. But it's like, now I got to go throttle everything back. Like, if I wanted to have a few drinks and have a good time, I can't because I got to go babysit somebody so that he doesn't get arrested or piss somebody off. And I think we've all been there with that. I mean, especially traveling with the military and traveling the world. And it's like, I always joke around and say, you never know who the dude is till you get off the airplane. You could have a guy in one area like proposing to his wife. You get on the
Uh-huh.
airplane, you get off the airplane. He's like, "Where's the hookers? And let's do this." And you're like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Like, I had no idea. I did not see that coming, you know? And
Thank you.
it's
Yes,
true
sir.
though. It's
It
true.
is.
And you're
Are
like,
you the type? Let me ask you, Brett. Let me ask
yeah.
you, Brett. Are you the type of guy that takes the leadership every time you go out with buddies, or you like to be like the first mate, where you let your closest homie be the one to take the lead, and then you only step in when you see them fucking up?
So, it's kind of
Does that
funny.
make
I
sense?
am cognizant of that. I know that when I'm so used to driving the boat and being like the boat guy and being the dive supervisor or whatever it is, that when you go and dive with other people that are just as competent or just as skilled, it's nice to sit back. I know a lot, like, so
Yes.
the last trip I went on, my friend was like, it's like, I'm gonna let him drive the boat. Yeah, I know I'm a better boat driver than he is. He's learning. And that's fine. I'm gonna let him drive the boat because it's his, first of all. I want, and because he asked me, hey, you want to drive? It's pretty rough. And I'm like, I did. And I was like, no problem, makes sense. Take the most skilled guy for that position for that time and have him do it. Cool. But you know what? Like, I don't have to be the guy. As a matter of fact, whatever best way I fit into this puzzle is good. Whatever can help push us forward together as a team. So let's let him have the experience. He can drive back, and I'm going to shut the fuck up. And if he has a question, he'll ask me, you know?
Yeah.
Like, for example, I was the head, not that this is a big deal, but like, I was the head uh JV coach at the high school here for football last season.
Mm-hmm.
And the head coach called me for the varsity, and he's like, "Hey, Brett, I contemplated asking you this, but I thought I should offer you and have it be your decision. We really want you on varsity to coach,
Nice.
but my son plays on varsity, and I didn't want to coach him. I just don't want to like mix that. I want to give him his
Mm,
space." And he's like, but I know I was going to wait for after last year when he graduates, or next year when he graduates, to ask you, but we'd really like to have your experience, whatever it is, on varsity. And thought about that. And I go, you know what? And I just answered pretty quickly because this is how I was brought up. being a
Mhm.
part of all these teams. I go, whatever's best for the team, throw me in there. However, you can best utilize me. I don't have to be the guy. I don't give a shit. And I
Yeah.
always tell the guys when I would mentor kids and some of the guys that I worked with in my regular job, I say, look, if you're going to be in charge, be in charge. But in order to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower first. And I'm not one of these guys that has to be in charge. But if I know something, I will offer something. So we're going down this rabbit hole of like team stuff, but I think it's really important because it's a fucking
Mhm.
skill that I didn't take for granted. I took for granted, I guess, until I started seeing and working with enough teams. And what I noticed, my friend mentioned this, and I didn't say anything about it, but because I really didn't notice it that much. But until after he said something, he said, "You know what's really funny? You notice the guys that fit into teams really quickly, really easily, are the guys that played a lot of like team sports growing up." And I was just interesting. I go, yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so, because every season is a new team, every, whatever sport you're playing. And so you kind of learn to hang back, kind of assess it, and then offer, if you have something to offer it. Right. Um, so that's cool because I have seen the flip side of that where guys like, I'm in charge and I know what to do and I'm this and that. And I have this qualification, so I'm this guy. And I'm like, yeah, dude,
Right.
you went to the course and that's the only training and you don't know shit. I've been doing this for 30 years or whatever it is. And I'm not like throwing out a resume, but like that's like your attitude like this. Okay. Part of me is like, okay, cool. Like if you got it, you got it. And then as we're going along, you're like, this dude's dangerous. He doesn't know shit.
Sorry. Go
My
ahead.
friend says the empty wagon makes the most noise. The guy barking the
Uh,
loudest is usually completely full of shit. You know, go ahead.
where you had me at was what I found interesting is that you wouldn't want to coach your son in a team sport within that culture of a team sport. But you see, I'm a huge fan of boxing, and some of the best boxers they get coached by their own fathers, or sometimes in some cases
Right.
their grandmother even, So it's just like this differences in in team sport versus individualistic sports such as spearfishing and boxing. It's very interesting,
Yes.
fascinating how you have this. It's a different. It really is. It's just a different culture.
Yeah.
You
So I
know, it,
boxed. So I,
you don't want to embarrass the shit out of your son in front of all his buddies.
no,
Probably right.
that's exactly it because
Right.
I'm harder and I don't want someone to ever say, "Oh, you're playing favorites" or something like that. Where instead I would be much harder on him because of that, and I expect the world of him, and it's not really fair. Um, but I wrestled and I boxed in the army, and I in college lately start been teaching him how to box. Because
Nice.
part of it, like you're saying though, as individual sports, like I'm like I know what I know and I know what I don't know, and like you know I I I did a bunch of stuff later on in life too. Like I did jujitsu. I mean, I don't train anymore, but because it's not the time. But I did jujitsu for a lot of years, and I would teach kids jujitsu and kids wrestling, because I
Mhm.
love wrestling. But and my son didn't want to wrestle, and I was like, God damn, okay, whatever. But um,
Moving on.
yeah, moving on. But it's like just the team sport is brings um, something out of someone, or instill certain things that you're all playing a role and it's really not about you, it's about you in this puzzle. But then the individual
Mhm.
sports, when I did my individual sports was because our team wasn't very good at the time. And I was like,
All right.
well, okay, I could have the best game of my life in football and we could still lose. And I'm really competitive in
Yeah.
some regards for some things I am for sure. But like if you do something like wrestling and or boxing, right? And I tell Hunter this, my son, I go, look, the lie detector test, if you put the time in, there is nobody going to save you when you walk out on that mat or you walk out on into that ring. And it's you and that other guy. And I can tell you as an adult now, looking back, having gone through that process, that's scary as hell. Even though
Yeah.
there's two types of people that are like winners, right? There's people that win because they love to win, and there's people that win
Hmm.
because they're terrified of losing. And it's like, which one are you? And I will say,
Huh.
like, I'm not even really sure. I just had this
Could be
attitude.
both.
Yeah,
I think we're more complex than that. It can be in both, and it depends on which side of the bed you woke up that day too.
well, that's true.
So to speak.
And like for me, like I would do shit where I would win tournaments or win stuff, and I wouldn't say anything to my dad. And my dad would be like, "Hey, you didn't tell me you did this or that." And this is my burden. I heard this on a podcast that I was listening to, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's others like that." I didn't really know, and it was really my brother. I talked to my brother about it. He's very much the same way. I go, I didn't say anything about it because that's what I expect of myself. Like, I'm not, I'm not stepping out on there to lose. I expect to win. So it's hard because I don't enjoy the win. I enjoy the moment where you pin someone or you knock someone out, or even you get your hand raised. Having said that, it's not even about the guy that you just beat, right? Like, I know that he had the balls to step in that ring. So there's always an underlying respect for that person, what they went through to get there too. Someone's got to win though. And having won, it's like,
Yeah.
yes, but then that's it. And so my dad was like, yeah, you didn't tell me you won and all that. And it's like, you know what? I feel like that behavior, that profession, I accept nothing but but winning. The problem is that same behavior will make you really good at things. Like, for
Hmm.
example, doing a podcast. Like, I've learned to throttle it back where it's like, but if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go 100%. But that same
Yep. That's
behavior
right.
can either make you great or that same behavior can destroy you if you don't catch yourself because you're never satisfied. You're always looking for the next mountain to climb. You're always doing this or you're always doing that. And I didn't know, I learned that about myself at like 40 when I was like, man, why am I never satisfied? Why am I this and that? And it's like, and everybody's like, oh, you're so humble because you have done this or that. Um, and it's like, whatever, it's not really about me. But then you realize it's part of your personality. It's like you're just pushing yourself. You've always kind of wired that way and it allows you to do great things, but it also can destroy you because you beat the shit out of yourself if you fail,
Yeah.
make a mistake, you know. Um,
Injuries.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, man. I remember I got injured
Injuries.
and I fell into a deep depression when I couldn't
Yeah.
fight anymore and all that. Yeah, it was terrible. Um, but anyways, buddy teams.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna tell you, there were a
Yeah.
couple points that you brought up that you got me thinking back to our earlier topic on when you asked me about when I started telling you of the guy that took me out for the first time, Lupe. One thing, because you asked me how did you get into spearfishing, and originally I was interested in spearfishing because I did commercial fishing for a whole year, fishing for squid out of Ventura, and we go around the Channel Islands, we go around San Clemente Island, Santa Barbara, San Nicolas, and it'd be we would work like the graveyard shift because the squid are attracted to the light, and I was surrounded by guys who were much bigger than me. I mean, you had this Samoan guy who looked like The Rock, and I mean, just some huge freaking guys. Like, I mean, god damn, I never seen anyone. It's like basically it's like CrossFit on steroids, working in commercial fishing, for catching squid specifically, and I mean what I'm just gonna touch a little bit about the culture before I get to my main point. But on this, there was no nonsense. I mean, the guys who ran the ship, they were in the Navy. They were in the Navy. So the engineer and the captain, they treated us like we're in the Navy ourselves. So I learned much discipline being on that boat because you couldn't even drop a single crumb from your sandwich and leave it on the kitchen counter. You couldn't get one single speck of food on the sponge when you wash the dishes, or you would get it. Like, it was just like verbal abuse, like, to the next level. And there's nowhere you can fucking go because you're trapped on a boat with five other guys who are much bigger than you, and they can beat your ass, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, but at the same time, some of these guys were just so kind and so humble. They just aspired this, like, this confidence. Like, so I might not be as big as you, but I'm probably faster and I probably have better endurance. for me, it's always been I catch myself always gravitating to guys who are larger and bigger than me. I think it happens at a subconscious level though. That when I went with Lupe, he's built himself, so it has inspired confidence in me to get in the ocean with him when before dropping the net in water, but never actually getting one of these guys on the boat when I did commercial fishing. So for me, it was like a way to mentally to get in the water. And so I said all goes back to it all ties in together with this whole idea of like who's the leader, who's the alpha male. I don't think it even has to do with being alpha male. It's like who's takes the back seat and who really takes out not so much a sense of safety, but a sense of security. Like, is this guy that I'm diving with gonna be able to save me? I mean, forget that he's down and he has the knowledge to save me if I'm freaking drowning down. But will he be able? Will he physically be able to do it? Does he have the physical ability to do it? And it all goes back to your point that when you have background in like in this case, Lupe, he has a solid background in BMX, that got him in like this amazing shape. I think having a solid foundation, having a solid background in sport, you kind of bring that fitness lifestyle into spearfishing, and that also helps it helps with building trust with your dive buddies.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's like a metaphor for life too. You always have to be ready. And you always have to rehearse situations where you might have to go through in your mind, rehearse it mentally at least, that if something were to happen, what is our plan? How we're going to execute it? And are you physically going to be able to do it? Like, and it's funny because I think you're right. As much as we like to pretend that we're so civilized and all that, there's a lot of very basic, primitive stuff that goes on in our minds, where being the primitive brain kind of tends to do what it's always done because it got us to this point so far. So keep doing it because it's working. So it's like, obviously, I was thinking about this the other day where it was like, why are people attracted to certain people? What tendencies do people find? Why do I got a friend said, "Oh my God, I saw a guy with his shirt off carrying a stroller with twins. The dude was huge, gorgeous, and jacked." And I literally had like a physical reaction. And I was cracking up because I was like, what is it about the human brain that, and it's probably the primitive side of the brain: food, water, shelter, survival, like survival, you know, and I think we're, like you said, like seeing someone big like that knows, all right, this dude's got it. If shit were to go south, like he can take care of me, or at least he knows how to take care of himself. He can help me. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's this guy. Another thing that you mentioned was that you alluded to was injuries. And I went diving with this guy once. He practices jiu-jitsu. So he's much bigger than me. And I mean, this guy, super quiet guy, but turned out to be like the nicest guy. It was my first time diving with him. And what happened? I overloaded the bands on my new Manny sub. This is not a sponsored deal or anything like that, but on my new double roller, I added some thicker bands basically, and it blew out the trigger mech. And so I was using a makeshift what do you call those things to help you load the gun, the load assist. I was using a makeshift, a load assist, and this load assist it was this makeshift load assist, and it had a big hook on it. And just the way that the whole thing went down, the trigger mech gave out when I was loading the gun with the load assist, and the load assist sprung back and it hit me in the face and knocked out 8 teeth. So during the height of the pandemic, I was mask mandate. They're gonna do away with mask mandates. No. I need my mask because, dude, I had no teeth for a whole year.
Holy shit. That must have felt great.
I had no teeth. And because of BMX, I have a pretty high threshold for physical pain that, I thought it was a joke at first. And I was like, what the fuck? No, I don't feel my teeth. I don't feel my teeth. Holy shit. And so when it dawned on me, I was like, I don't have any front teeth. And I started like trying to hide that I was in a panic, because I was literally in the water, and I'm here trying to collect my teeth as they're floating away from me. And I have a couple of other teeth lodged in the roof of my mouth. And I'm looking for Nick. I'm like, yo, where is this guy? And then he just pops up out of nowhere. Oh shit, are you okay? You got blood all over your mouth. And I mean, this guy was like the nicest dude. Like he was like, I can drive you to the hospital. Let me here, I'll walk with you. Give me your gear. And like, he was just so helpful. Now that I'm looking back, like, he didn't have to do all of that. He didn't have to pick up my gear. Like, I was over here, like, trying to like keep myself from like bleeding out, and I was still like in these days where like you don't know what just happened. Like, you're still trying to, like, you got so much adrenaline going. And when I look back, like, he just grabbed all my stuff, my gun and everything. He helped me get up the ravine, in PV, and up the trail, and back to my car. And then when we had later on, like, the whole thing is kind of a blur for me because of all the adrenaline and everything that I was going through. But
And you probably got your bell rung too, getting punched right in the mouth,
yeah. So after, like, fast forward a couple days later, once things settled a little bit, or at least I thought, because like I said, I had to be toothless for a whole year. When he told me a few days later over the phone, he's like, dude, this guy was just chilling at the top of the cliff, and he was drinking beer, and you asked him for one, and no, actually, he just offered you a beer. He threw you a beer, you drank the beer, and you just chugged it like nothing even happened. And I was like, he goes like, dude, that's pretty fucking badass. And I'm like, I did all that. Well, I think it was just like my body telling me that I needed to numb the pain away or something. I don't fucking know. But it's just it was just the whole thing. Like, looking back, it's just is I'm thinking, and I'm just like, you don't know who you're gonna go diving with, and when you dive with them, when the shit suddenly hits the fan. I mean, because we were diving in like just under 20 feet. We were barely loading the guns. We were barely gonna start our dive session, and so transitioning from talking about physique and stuff, now getting into injuries. This was one out of four injuries in the last 3 years that I've sustained, and through spearfishing. So that just highlights why I make safety and security such a big deal. I mean, we're talking, being this teeth injury setting me back $15,000.
I was gonna say that's not cheap. Yeah, that's not cheap. Seriously,
man.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And then what were some of the other injuries you've had?
Dude, the other one, well, the first one, we were in Catalina, and my shaft got stuck. I was still in grad school, so I wasn't making no money. And at the time, I was just like, no, I don't want to lose my shaft. That shit's $80. I don't want to lose my shaft. So I forgot to equalize. And when I came up, I just had this sense of fullness in my left ear.
Right.
And I started getting this ringing in my ear, and it just since that was December 2018. That was a few months since I started diving. It hasn't gone away, and as we speak, I still hear. I still have the tinnitus. So that was the first injury, and it's like, fuck. When I look back, I'm like, dude, it was only $80. But now I can say that back then, it sounded more like a luxury because, again, I was in grad school.
I get it, man. Like, that's one thing I feel like they talk about trust fund Spearos and stuff, like,
oh, really?
I'm
That's
like,
a thing, huh?
I guess. I mean, I don't know anybody's finances. I don't, give a shit. But I do know for me, like, oh yeah, I'm totally cheap. Cause I mean,
that's right. You had those floats. Oh shit.
Yeah,
that's
bro.
right.
Well, those floats, not just that they're cheap because they fucking work, but
yeah.
I'm finding different ways because part of it is, like you saying, $80, yeah, $80 here. Then it's like every time I go out, it's like, oh, this, that, this, that, this, that. And my wife's like, hey, we got to pay for travel basketball this, for my daughter. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna go put $400 in my boat and see if I can get a tuna. You can only do that so many times
Yeah.
over 20 years for her. And she's like, hey, you better be smart about this shit. Um, so yeah, I'm just not, I don't like pissing away money. There's just too many other areas that,
Yeah. This
but
this podcast is the voice of the people.
trying to be like, well, I mean, yeah, fuck it, yeah.
Not trust funds. Not, what did you call them? Trust
No,
fund Spiros.
yeah, I don't, I've heard trust fund Spiros and
That's hilarious.
it's true. There are some people, but that's, I don't, that's an opportunity. What a great opportunity for them, for people like that to be in. Who gives a shit? I know people that have traveled a lot when they were young, and I didn't get the opportunity for spearfishing wise until I could mix business with pleasure a little bit and go places for months and get places dialed in. But some people, are able to go on more trips. They're just well off. Oh, well, good for them. That's awesome. So, but I've heard people say, oh, trust fund Spiros, but like, I definitely am not a trust fund Spiro. I'm saving every fucking dime I can so that I can
Yeah.
go back and do this over and over and over again, yeah. So yeah, trust fund
You
Spiros.
used to, nah, dude. I honestly think that one of these days. I mean, right now, I'm single. I don't have any children, but that's gonna change in the next few years. And I mean, I'll be hitting you up. I mean, you said you used what was it? A bucket, a pail, a sand pail, right? Like one of your kids,
Oh
little buckets they
yeah,
use
no,
to
the
build
beach,
sandcastles.
yeah, the beach bucket to make the
Beach
mold
bucket.
for the little like sand, yeah, the sand bucket,
You use it
you
as a
know.
mold for the tip of the this big fucking crayon on
A
steroids.
big like, that's right. You saw it on the boat that day. Did you see it on the boat that day?
Yeah, yeah, you showed it to us, man. You were all
Yeah.
hyped
God damn,
about
that
it.
thing is ugly, dude. But I tell you what, that thing is, I trust that thing with anything. But yeah, and it was $100 to make, or I could spend $300 on a really good float, or $400, whatever it is, on a good Gannett, Rive 3 atmosphere. Like, cool. I'd rather just make the shit myself and be done with it. I mean, obviously, if you're traveling a lot, those inflatables are crucial. But I was in a situation where I could throw it in with the military equipment and call it a day. So, you know,
Yeah, Brent Spears was on the boat with us that day, and he
yes.
also makes his own stuff. And I remember you guys going on, getting into detail about how to make these things. But dude, I was just barely starting out. Like that whole thing went right over my head. But I mean,
Yeah.
you guys were making your own float lines, and dude, I was just like
Yeah.
super
Guns and
blown away.
stuff.
Like that's gonna be me in a few years. Like I want to fucking say to my kids, look, I made this. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. That's a whole nother thing, because when you take a fish with your own spear gun, your own float line, your own float, look, there's nothing wrong with not doing that at all. But it's just like, cool. I just really enjoy it. That's another aspect of spearfishing that makes me feel like the taps into that old primitive like side of things. Like, guys were shooting a lot of fish in 1950, 1960 before we had all this fancy shit. Granted,
mhm.
there was probably a lot more fish. But what they say we need and what we need sometimes are two different things. And the reason why I say that is because the spearfishing industry, there's like five of us that spearfish. Like, I seriously, you're talking about scuba diving where there's a 300% markup on all the gear. Spearfishing, it's even less people diving. And so they're trying to sell products. And to be totally fair, a lot of them are trying to make products better and better and better. And they're doing a great job. But you don't necessarily need that. You could still go in the kelp and dive with a fucking sweatsuit, a 3-2, if it's warm enough, a surf suit, a scuba dive
Oh, I heard
suit.
sweatsuit. I was like, damn, a
No, no,
sweatsuit.
no, no, a surf
I
suit.
heard wrong. I heard wrong.
Yeah, no, a surf suit, a scuba dive suit, whatever, a fucking whatever, scuba pro suit, a pair of shitty fins bought at, Sport Chalet, or which I guess that's closed now, but like regular scuba diving outfit. If you know what
Uh-huh.
you're doing, you're gonna get fish. You just don't, if you
That's
know what
right.
you're doing, you are. But now, having said that, it's a lot more enjoyable and a lot easier and efficient to have good equipment. But don't be discouraged to people that can't afford all this shit. You don't, I mean, you don't need it to be successful, but it is nice to have it. And when you get involved in spearfishing, buy some nice gear that's comfortable, like a really nice mask that feels good on your face. Stay warm if you can. Um, and don't dump $2,000 and trying to get into all this stuff and you don't even know if you like it. That's where I'm saying, like, I always say, like, people say get carbons is really, I gotta get plastic fins until you even actually start to dive before you need them. And then later on, great, get carbons. But really the most important shit is, I think, honestly, in a lot of ways, is enjoying yourself, the things that make you enjoy yourself. A good
That's right.
mask. I
And I
mean,
think to take this to the next level, I would say, because you do get that societal pressure of wanting to have good gear, for those, like, for the newbies who are listening, right now, that happened to me. I had all these things that I bought off of eBay. Like, I had this really old school weight belt. I had plastic fins. I had a Salvimar, the cheap one, jumpsuit. Wetsuit, 5 mil. My gear wasn't on point at the time, and now it's looking a little better. But at the time, it looked like shit. And I was I went to Catalina on the boat of a shop owner who shall remain unnamed. But dude, this guy was fucking bullying me, and he's like just clowning me, like, where did you get your weight belt? Where did you get this? Where did you get that? How much was this? And he was just cracking up and trying to, like, literally, like, belittle me in front of these rich guys that he normally goes diving with on
right.
his boat that he takes out.
A
And
shop
you know
owner.
what?
So, like, they're trying to sell you their shit.
Exactly.
Yeah, dude.
And it's trying to get into my head, and it's like, dude, I know these little fucking games, from commercial fishing, being alone on a boat, and you're like on this guy's boat, you're in the middle of nowhere, and you're surrounded by his friends, and it's just like all that pressure. Like, you don't want to be that guy, you don't want to be like singled out, right? And I'm thinking, this fucking guy doesn't know me, or he doesn't know anything about me. Like, you don't know if I'm being cheap, you don't know if I can afford it or not. And I told him, I called out his name, and I said, we just met.
Right.
We
I
just
don't
met.
fucking
Like,
know you, man.
I'm on your boat, but we just met. This is me right now. But you think I'm gonna go back to your shop and buy my new gear from you?
Right.
There's this other shop across the street that is 10 times better. I should have told him like that, and he didn't like it. But it's just like,
Right, but
at
that
the
goes
time,
back to what
again,
we said before, though.
yeah,
Like,
it's like, you just gotta
who gives
defend
a
yourself.
shit?
Fuck the vibes, bro. Fuck the
Yeah.
vibes.
Well,
If
do
somebody's
I?
pissing you off on the boat, you gotta stand up for yourself.
Well, there's that, and, like, do I really give a shit if this guy? And I don't know who you're talking about, but I'm just saying, like, do I really give a shit if this person's my friend or not? If he's gonna do shit like this, like, no. If he's playing with you, okay. If he's being a dick about
Oh
it,
no,
like,
it was a total dick move. Like,
yeah,
come on,
then
man.
fuck off, bro. Like,
Yeah, it was completely uncalled for. It was just like, he could have said, hey, I got some stuff on layaway, kind of hint at it, when it's just us two. No, but this guy was like straight up like clowning me in front of everyone, like pointing and laughing, like, hey, bro, come on, dude. Like,
I joke,
can you just
dude.
welcome me into the sport? Can you to the community? Like, I already gave you my money to be out here. Like, what more do you want?
I always joke around about that. I have like a character. I always joke around, like, what, plastic fins, bro? Seriously, bro? Like, are you even Salty Crew, bro? The name brand thing. Nothing against Salty Crew, but I mean, the whole fucking name brand thing cracks me up. It's like, hey, dude, unless they're paying me, I don't give a shit what it is. Like, I haven't bought a shirt in probably 10 years that wasn't given to me at Christmas or whatever, or during a tournament or something. But I get it. People are trying to create an industry to market and sell stuff. And so I think newer guys start to believe that. It's like high school. It's like the cool guy crowd. They've got all the good shit, right? So everybody's like, oh, I want to be like them. And the whole point of this thing is to go in the water and shoot fish. Not that big of a fucking deal. Everybody calm down. Like, we're supposed to be getting away from all the bullshit, not creating it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Unless it rained in unless it rained less than 72 hours before.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
which takes me to my next injuries story.
What's that?
It rained. Yeah, it rained, and literally like the day after it rained, I was all stoked. Hell yeah, it's Saturday. I don't have that much homework. This is again when I was in grad school, and I got in the water, and then it's Monday. I wake up, and I'm like, why is the singing of birds sounding different? Like that shit was just weird to me. And then I turned around and I could hear it louder. I ended up with what you call a sudden unilateral hearing loss. And
Interesting.
yeah. And I said, what the fuck? I went to school. I got ready for school. I went to class, and it was like the weirdest sounds, just the way that, okay, because I couldn't hear on my left ear. And when the lecturer, my teacher, my professor would speak, the sound would reverberate in one wall, and then it would bounce on the opposite wall, and then finally funnel into my working ear. So you would get this weird echoey reception of speech that was really fucking freaky. And then on top of that, I have my tinnitus. So now I'm like, damn, I really fucked myself up. What did I get myself into? And I'm like, I'm over here taking notes. We're getting ready for finals, and I'm just shitting bricks because I can't hear anything out of my left ear. So I ended up going to, I Googled an ENT, an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and the assistant did like a quick screen. She took my information. She did like a quick hearing screening, and she asked me, when did this happen? I said, it's just happened. I lost my hearing. It was less than 2 weeks ago. I said, yeah, it just happened like last week. Okay, all right. Okay, and what about I told her about my tinnitus, and then I said, oh, that happened in December 2018. It's already been over a year. So when I finally got to see the doctor didn't read my chart right, the notes from the lady who took the assistant who did the screener, who took my information down. So the doctor mixed up when I lost my hearing with when I got my tinnitus. So he thought that I lost my hearing over a year ago, and I was coming to do a steroid treatment with him. So he said, I hate to tell you this. He looked in my ear. He went through this whole like repertoire of like of his assessment. He went through all the steps, and then just to tell me that I wasn't going to hear again. But I didn't know that he made a mistake and didn't read my medical chart right.
That's
he just
brutal.
told me. He just told me, some people. He's like, some people learn to live this way. It's okay. You at least you have your other ear. And I was like, and I'm under that, I have all this stress from being in grad school too. I'm like, I was like, what the fuck, dude? I told him like that, like, what's your problem? You're telling me that I can't hear anything? I'm not going to hear anything ever out of my ear, out of my left ear for the rest of my life? What is wrong with you? This is your bedside manner? And I'm like, I was so angry, dude.
What did he say, though?
I just started tearing up. Like, I was just so freaking angry. And then he's like, well, look, you don't have to get so upset. You don't have to get so mad, this and that. And I said, no, you don't talk to your patients that way. Can you be a little more gentle? Like, you're telling me that I'm not going to hear ever again. What's wrong with you? Okay, well, let's back this up. Tell me, how did this happen? And I explained what happened. And then he said, oh, so you lost your hearing less than 2 weeks ago? I said, yes. Oh, I thought you lost it back in December 2018. And I go, no, that's my tinnitus. Oh, I'll be right back. He comes back with this big ass syringe with this huge needle, right? And he says, I'm going to stick this needle in your eardrum. Now, after I inject you with this needle, if the room starts spinning, that means that you'll hear again, that we can save your ear. But if nothing happens, then your ear is dead. So he sticks that big ass needle, into my ear canal. And I could just feel it, dude. It's almost like tickling my brain, right? And I'm just like, please room, just start fucking spinning. Dude, I was just like, please start spinning. And I just kept closing my eyes really tight and opening them again to see if the room would start spinning.
Yeah.
And the room started spinning like crazy, and I couldn't have been more happy.
And you threw up.
Dude,
Holy
the
shit, man.
whole fucking place started spinning, and I couldn't have been happier. Like, yeah, it was like one of the biggest scare I've had. I think
Oh shit.
in a way it was almost as traumatic as losing my AT. Yeah, and that all. And see, but the reason yes, it's shock value, but the main lesson here is yeah, I mean, people tell you, wait a few days after it rains to get in the water, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So along that line, like one of the first podcasts I did was with a friend of mine who's an ear, nose, and throat doctor here. And I met him through some of my ear problems, right? And he had told me about do not go in the water. Like that's a real thing. And he surfs too. He's like, Brett, I'm telling you, after it rains, especially where you surf, just trust me. Because before I went to him, I had had 2 staph infections because I would go surfing with a cut on my knee or something, wake up, just like what you're talking about, feel fine, wake up the next morning or some like couple days later, and I thought I like blew my knee out. Like, what the fuck is going on? It's all swollen, and I didn't, at the time I didn't really know. I was pretty young, and come to find out, I got like a staph infection, in my knee.
Yeah.
And so now I'm definitely like, I used to not care about anything. Maybe it's older and wiser, but I definitely take my sweet time just being safe about that stuff, because you're right. You don't realize how important it is to your everyday life until it's gone. Like when they said, oh yeah, you're going to be in pain the rest of your life, or that's always going to be an issue. My back, when I messed my back up, and he's like, oh, that's a bummer. You're young, and I remember him saying that, being like, oh, well, fuck me, dude. Like, like you could say it a little nicer,
Yeah.
And
But
yeah, it's gnarly, dude. I get it, man. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time, and um I could talk to you more about this stuff, but is there anything you want to say? Like, how can people reach out to you and link up with you, social media and all that stuff?
yeah. So they can find me at Ghost Spearfishing and on Instagram, and I also have a YouTube channel. One thing that I did not mention is that when we go out diving, if you bring your GoPro and you got footage and you want to send it to me, you're more than welcome to do that, and then I will feature your footage, the fish that you caught. We'll throw it on the edits, and then it'll be much. I think it'll be it'll make the video even better. So that's the one thing that I offer. I'm into editing and stuff like that. So um, that's the one thing that I want to get out.
Do you do editing? Like, do people pay you to edit their stuff, or you're just kind of busy with your real job and then you just do that for your brand Ghost?
No, it's I just do it for fun. I just do it. I do
Right.
everything on an app on my phone, but it's just more of like it. It's like, I don't know if you're familiar, but with skating videos or BMX videos, like that's like the thing to do in our culture. It's like we go out diving. I mean, we go out riding our bikes. We
Yeah.
have a good sesh, and then we just put a small video of the session with everyone's stunts in it.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that with skateboarding growing up
Yeah,
in Southern
there you go.
California. Like everybody wants to put the run together, and it's like,
Hell
oh,
yeah.
let me try that. Yeah, I totally understand that. Well,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you again. Um, you have an awesome story. And the whole meaning behind the ghost thing. Um, really, really cool to try to draw that connection in your own personal story. And the one thing I'll say that I find inspiring about someone like you that basically came from nothing. Well, you had it, you lost it, and winners find a way to win. And I tell
Mhm.
my kids that nobody goes into a fight 100%. Nobody goes into anything 100%. Shit happens in life. And what do champions do? They find a way to win, and I think you're a living example of that. So
That's right.
awesome, man. Awesome.
Hey, that concludes this episode of the Spearfactor Spearfishing Podcast. Thank you, Hugo, for being an amazing guest and being honest. And thank you for sharing your story with us. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Until next time, dive safe. And if you want more information, be sure to check out spearfactor.com. Or if you need some help or have questions, want to take a course, check out spearfishingmentor.com. All right, take care.